Hello everybody, welcome back. I know it's been a while. I'm glad to finally have a whole new setup, a new desk, new PC, new monitors and everything. I've completely reconfigured my setup and I have a whole bunch of reasons for that. But today, we're going to be talking about the PC that I just built. Now, my AMD system, unfortunately I was having tons of issues with. Videos didn't want to encode, stream quality was uncooperative, it would stutter, game FPS was low, and then there towards the end, right before I ended up parting out both of my AMD systems, I was having crazy temperature fluctuations that I absolutely could not get under control no matter what I tried. And that was a tipping point for me. I had been in a work stoppage for over a month, no videos, no photo editing, no streaming, couldn't do anything. So I finally made the move to Team Blue, and I have to say, so far, I have absolutely no regrets. The new system is a 9900K, it's an i9, but it's not an HEDT platform, so to me, it's not a real i9. But it's 8-core, 16-thread. Right now, due to some very minor mistakes I made, it's at 4.9 gigahertz, but it will soon be clocked way higher than that, hopefully by this weekend. And then I have a 2080 Ti. I have an NVMe boot drive, I think it's a 960 Evo Plus, and then I have a WD Blue, or WD Black maybe, SSD M.2, 2TB drive. And then for all the content that I deliver to you guys and for all my photography work, I have a WD Black 4TB drive in there. And of course all of this is on a custom water loop in the Lian-Li PC-O11 Dynamic. I made a video in the past complaining about this case, and all of those complaints are extremely valid. But due to limited desk space and the fact that I just didn't want, this huge super tower on my desk, I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I decided to give this another try. I talked myself into it, and honestly I don't entirely regret it. So today I'm making this video as a Lian-Li PC-O11 Dynamic redemption video. This is going to be the review part 2. So seeing as I've actually built a custom loop in there, and I've used 360mm radiators, so I've completely utilized the case. I didn't use any distro blocks or anything giving up any radiator space. So this chassis is used to its entirety. We're going to be going over some of the hardships I had building in here, what you have to be careful planning around and things like that, what works, what doesn't work, and just what you need to keep in mind if you do plan on doing a custom water loop in this case. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to get into with this case is cooling potential. Is it actually worth having this case if you want the best cooling for your components? If you want your CPU and your GPU to run cool, or if you have a huge power draw and you're trying to cool your components, will this case work well? Well, the short answer is absolutely yes, it will. We'll take my graphics card for example. I have a Founders Edition NVIDIA 2080 Ti. That under full load will saturate temperatures at 42°C, and that is with an overclock. That is with plus 150 on the core, plus 500 on the memory, power slider all the way to 127. Like absolutely balls to the wall, and I can leave it running on a loop with heaven all day if I wanted to. It will not pass 42. That is the highest number I've seen for temperatures on my graphics card, and that pulls almost 400 watts, I want to say, like high 300s. So yeah, 360 radiators, although they're slim, they're 30mm thick, they work incredibly well, and the fact that you can fit it in a case this small is awesome. My CPU is kind of a different story. The 9900K is soldered.
Just when I thought they couldn't get any stupider.
Temperatures, on their own, even with the best cooling capabilities, still won't be great. And on top of that, upon priming my loop using SysPrep, it knocked some stuff loose from my radiator, and that gunk found its way into my CPU block. So for now, running 4.9 gigahertz, if I run Cinebench repeatedly, it'll hit ADC. Gaming and stuff, it's in the 50s and 60s. Even rendering, I think, is in mid 70s. So once I get that sorted out, and once I have it desoldered and properly, diluted with liquid metal, I think it will be a very, very different story. I'm expecting something pretty close to the graphics card, probably 50s or 60s, absolute max running Prime 95. Hopefully, we'll see. That's a lot of heat in a really small package. The cool thing about the GPU is that it's spread out. The block has a lot more coverage, so I think that helps it stay cooler. But the fact that you can fit three 360mm radiators in this, and it does such a good job at cooling, the airflow is excellent, I think is incredibly impressive, because I did a build almost with identical parts, 9900K 2080 Ti in a Thermaltake X71, and mine runs cooler. So I don't really know why. It's the same parts and, three 360mm radiators. Yeah, I don't know why, but mine runs significantly cooler, so that's cool. Maybe it's the GPU block. I used an EK Vector on this one, and I used a Bits Power block on the clients, so maybe that's it. I don't know. So second off, we will talk about the case layout. That is a huge drawback, but a necessary one. So it's the only way they could pull this off. So essentially, this build is kind of done in layers. Everything kind of overlaps other components. You don't have anything readily accessible, really. You kind of have to disassemble it in stages to do maintenance on some things or to swap certain parts out. You can't just, like if I want to get one of my M.2 drives out, I have to pull the bottom fans off the radiator to get there, and even that's a struggle, honestly. I almost had to pull the bottom radiator out, so that was extremely difficult. If you want to get the motherboard out, you're gonna have to pull the top and bottom radiator out. So the way it kind of goes together, order of operations, you're gonna have your CPU and your RAM and stuff put in your board. You're gonna bolt your board to the case, and then get that all wired up, get your drives and everything on the board that you're going to use, your M.2 drives, run all your cables, and then you're going to put your radiators and your fans in, and then you're going to get your graphics card in, and then you're going to plumb everything. So needless to say, if you need to get something that's covered by your radiator or your fans, you're going to have to drain the loop and take that stuff out, which is a huge pain in the ass. That is not really an issue I had with the X71, but that case is huge. It's absolutely massive, so of course everything is spread out far enough to where nothing is overlapping. I mean, even the bottom chamber had its own compartment for that radiator and those fans, so everything is just so spread out from itself that maintenance is super easy. On this, if there's like one little thing, like a wire I have to attach or something, it's pretty much a given. If you have to do anything with this, you're gonna have to drain the loop and pull some of the tubes off, maybe pull the radiator out. So that is something to keep in mind. It's not a huge deal. It's really not. It sounds like a bigger deal than it is. Just plan what you're gonna do so you don't have to do it twice, so you don't have to undo things. If you do plan on using all three radiator slots in this case, think about what you're gonna do. Plan your build accordingly, so you can just have a game plan, you follow that to a T, get everything installed, you get post first time, and you don't have to mess with it. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for me. Apparently, the Hero X has dedicated NVMe slots for M.2 storage, so they're not interchangeable with SATA. So I did have to swap my M.2 drives out, so I had to pull the bottom middle fan out under the GPU with the tubing in the way. So I was in there with a little right angle Allen wrench trying to get in there, trying to get those bolts out, and that was pretty stressful. Worried about bending the GPU too much and damaging the PCI input, but it was okay. I made it work, didn't damage anything. So that was a little bit nerve-wracking. So that is something else to keep in mind for this case. But overall, after building in it, I think the benefits greatly outweigh the cons. I think just looking at this case and then building in it with an air-cooled system, it's easy to be intimidated, and it's easy to let your imagination get a hold of all the potential shortcomings you might think there could be. Just by looking at it, you don't think it's going to cool your system well, and you think, man, this is going to be such a nightmare to plan a loop in. and I'll show you some B-roll of what I had to do to get the tubing to work. So yeah, make sure you're very good at bending PETG, or just if you don't hate yourself, if you're not a self-deprecating, you know, just sadistic person, use soft tubing. There's no shame in using soft tubing at all. I couldn't swallow my pride, had to use PETG, had to hard tube it, and that was a lot of hours of you know, soap on the floor, bleeder heads, tube lube, great stuff. I'll be doing a video on that, and yeah, it was just lots of burnt fingertips and lots of soap on the floor. It wasn't a good time. But now that it's done, I feel like I can exhale. I feel like, thank God I have this done, and it's beautiful. I'm so glad with all the parts that I chose, and it's a nice desk piece to have. It's very aesthetic and incredibly functional. And finding a case that does both, this is essentially a glass display case with unrivaled airflow, which to me is amazing. Now, is it for extreme overclocking? I wouldn't really say that. I feel like the marketing on it was a little bit shady, trying to pull people in. But I will say, if you want the most out of your hardware in a small case, nothing will beat this. Now, you can get something like the Regentech Enyo, which I did a video on as well, which houses four 480mm radiators and a 360 in the back. That can't be beat unless you build something from scratch. That cannot be beat. There is no case out there that has better radiator support than that. So is that an XOC case? Abso-freaking-lutely yes. That can't be beat. So as far as like a pre-made case goes, something that you just buy and you install parts in, if you're after XOC and you're after some crazy numbers on water or even ice water, get the Regentech Enyo. It's huge. It's absolutely the most gaudy extra thing I've ever seen, and it's beautiful. So if you're after XOC, do that. But if you just want to get the most out of your hardware like me, I'm not trying to push mine to the limits. I just want to keep my stuff cold. So if I'm rendering for hours, if I'm trying to make this thing, you know, sweat using rendering 4K footage, or if I'm streaming for several hours and just really beating on my hardware, then absolutely I want it to stay ice cold. So using all of these radiators helps me a ton with that, and this case is the perfect house for it. So yeah, it's also pretty reasonably priced. It's not very much over $100. I think last time I price checked it, it was about $130, which is incredibly modest for, you know, what you're getting. There's a lot of tempered glass in this case, and that is very expensive. So yeah, cable management is also awesome. Huge shout out to Mod1 for supplying me with some custom cables. And once you go that route, it frees up so much room, even with the 9 fans that I have. And these are Bora lights, so there's a PWM and a 50/50 header coming off of that, or 50/50 connector I should say. And so that's 18 cables right there, and then you have the SATA cables for the splitters and all the other stuff. I still feel like it's not cramped back there. I still feel like it's not that bad. So I mean, that's pretty good for cable management as far as that goes. So I will say I absolutely love this case. Radiator clearance is a pain. That side radiator, if you use a top and a bottom, you kind of have to tuck it back in there to give you enough clearance to run the tubing off of the top, because essentially you have your side radiator like this and your top one is right in front of those ports. So what you have to do is you have to jut the tubing out and then bend it immediately. But as soon as you go down, oh, reservoir's in the way, so you have to bend it again. So you'll see one of these runs has like 3 or 4 bends in it, and that really was a pain in my ass. But like I said, if you can get over that, if you can bend the tubing or go soft tubing, you're fine. That is really like the biggest complaint I have with this, is parts clearance and overlapping, which just do it right the first time and you're good. So I'll go ahead and wrap this video up, because honestly I could talk about computers all day. So thank you for watching the video. Hit like if this was helpful, if you found this informative, dislike if you didn't like it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. I am also streaming on Twitch now at twitch.tv/ONE1OFF. I will be streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So be sure to catch me on there if you have any questions, or if you want to make fun of me or talk about tech stuff. So yeah, I will see you around. Thanks for tuning in.